Good morning. I'm Denise Dryden doing my weekly check-ins on what I'm noticing, what I'm hearing from my clients, and what we want to work on or play with, right? As far as energy and our relationships. So today I want to talk about the energy of resentment. Now, this was sort of a topic I threw out there thinking, yeah, this will be good. This will be interesting. And all throughout Saturday and last night and then this morning, just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So this ends up being a tremendously powerful topic to talk about because resentment is complex. It's a multi-layered emotion. It doesn't really have just one succinct approach, and it holds an enormous amount of power. And it's linked to our self-awareness and our self-confidence. And so let's start with the definitions of to resent or resentment, okay? So to resent is an action. It's where you feel indignant or distressed by something that happened to you, right? It's where you can express an annoyance, like, oh, I can't believe he said that to me, or she did that. It's to show or feel displeasure at a person or an act or a remark. So to actually physically show or feel, no, I didn't like that. That hurt, right? Or it's a perceived wrongdoing. So it's something where I feel hurt, or I feel something has happened to me that wasn't okay. Makes sense, right? So resentment is holding on to that action and holding on to ill will or indignation and feeling wronged. And what I was surprised to find when I was going through the definitions is that it's a really strong feeling. It's big. It's a sense of what has been done. And so when I go to the I think it was the third definition on resentment, it said it's a feeling or perceiving. It's strong. It's a clear sensation. It is about our perception, and it's a sense of what was done wrong, right? Or what was done. And so it's a sense, which means that it activates almost every part of us when we get indignant or we get hurt or we show displeasure. It isn't because something sort of pinged us and it just hurt one little thing. It activates all of us. So we get really big and activated. And it happens when there's unfairness or when there's injustice. It happens when the other person doesn't acknowledge that they said something that hurt or that they did something that was a slam to you, right? So it is a strong combination, and wait till you hear these: disappointment, disgust, anger, and fear. Disappointment, disgust, anger, and fear. And they start to swirl around inside of our body. And we're like, whoa. So this is this strong sensation of these swirling energies that are hard to acknowledge because they aren't one thing. They're four things or more, all swirling, right? So we go into this energetic loop. We get trapped with the anger or the fear or the indignation or the disappointment. Like I thought that she would never do something like that to me, right? And so we're in this emotional loop of energy, which is energy in motion. So resentment doesn't usually happen to someone who has self-confidence or self-awareness. Resentment is, or even wisdom, right? Because it's only when there's an imbalanced power dynamic or a perceived imbalanced power dynamic. It happens when we hold the victim within ourselves, which is we're unable to address it. We're unable to say, ooh, hey, I didn't like the way that felt. We are silenced and we don't know how to address it. It happens when we're powerless. Or it happens when we have unknown hurts and reactions. So this energetic swirl of resentment that holds disappointment, disgust, anger, and fear happens when we perceive ourselves in an out of balance, unequal situation, when there's victim energy, and when we feel powerless. So we're left with a lot of resentment stuffed down inside of us as humans. It makes sense because right now, in these last 1 year, 2 year, 20 year, 100 years, we've been feeling wronged, and we've been feeling the injustice. We've been sensing it, right? We carry this righteousness inside of us, which is, this is what the right issue is. This is what I believe needs to be addressed, but we don't have any power to address it. We can look around and see other people who seem completely unaffected by this swirl or pain that you might be having inside, because your field, your energy's been tapped, and all four of these things are like swirling around, and you're a mess inside, and you look out and you see someone who's happy and laughing, and you think, oh, how dare they be this happy right now when there's this much going on? We have resentment, right? And we are feeling these imbalances in power, whether it's completely victim to rising gas prices, rising food prices and food shortages, mandates, familial decisions, and there's just this swirl about our health, about our safety, and our fear is up, which goes into resentment. It makes sense. So we have this really strong sense that there's this unbalanced issue of control going on, and we don't know what to do about it. I'm just going to flip this. I do this every time. I used to have better notes, but yeah. So remember, when there's this strong, complex emotion going on, and there's a lot of swirling on you, it has to have touched something that is sort of calling you towards some deeper work. It has to touch your shadow. It has to touch some of your deep old memories and pains, or it wouldn't have a hold on you. That's the best part. When we talk about self-confidence or self-knowledge, that means that I've cleared out my field, and you can say things and they're not going to hurt me the same way as if I was unaware of them. I had blind spots and I was pinged, right? I did a video on the triggers that teens can hit. When they know exactly where your hurts are, they can hit those, and you go into a swirl and then they sort of disappear. So go back and look at that. That's in my library of videos. So this energetic loop, this hold, has some really interesting things when we bring the elements in, because disappointment is all about expectations. I didn't think you would ever do that. I have an expectation about you or the world or my job. And so it's emotional, right? So it's water. Disgust is connected to rejection. Hey, I'm going to respond with my lip curled and absolute deep disgust because you've rejected me or you've mocked me on some level, and it's offensive. Mental, air. Anger, it's where the fire comes up in you and the emotions are stirring around and you don't know what to do. It's a reactive energy that's fueled fire, right? And then fear is when you sense danger or a lack of safety. Physical safety, physical well-being. My body can't even be comfortable right now. Earth, right? The physical earth. So when all of these things are swirling around and we project them out into the world, so we are resentful. We're resentful to our spouses. We're resentful to our bosses. We're resentful to our kids. And it gets in the way of our relationships and our community. So I have 4 tips for you today. And again, this is not light. This is not an easy process. However, resentment is something that I think as we start to peel back will make a world of difference in our world, our own internal fields, our world. So number 1, I think that the best place to start, and I went through this a couple times, like, oh, that's kind of heavy to start with, but I think it's where we need to go, is start with the hidden spots within you. Start with the wounds, the old hurts that have existed since you were young. Go find them. And then sort of gently go down and this could be shadow work. These are those shadow spots that are activated when they're pushed on or they're touched or someone says something that reminds you of that pain, right? So when you do this work and you go in and do the deep shadow work, the deep wound work, then what you do is you normalize them. Like, yeah, I'm going to have a reaction when you talk about how frizzy my hair is. I'm going to have a reaction when, we can go physical, we can go emotional, we can go into a lot of different things. I'm going to have a reaction until I learn that I don't need to have that reaction because I'm pretty calm about this right now, okay? Number 2, get really honest with your victim energy. Some of us have never held that. Some of us have held it for lifetimes. And some of us, like myself, I somehow dropped into victim and probably spent about 2 to 3 decades in victim energy. And it's where you hold on to the old hurt or the stories, and they keep presenting themselves. Well, yeah, of course they're going to do that because of this. Oh, yeah. And so what happens is we hold the lens of the victim. He did this to me. She did this. It's external, and there's strings, and everything hurts all the time. And then after a while, there's nobody you can talk to because all that you ever talk about is how much things hurt or how upset you are or how unfair it is. So get a hold of that victim energy and start really getting real with, is this who I want to be? Is this how I want to go through life? Is holding this poor me, this always happens to me, or he does this to me, or she always does this to me, right? Number 3, pay attention to the swirl of energy. What causes it? What comes in first? Find out where you get hurt. Is it that all of a sudden your senses tell you that something's not safe? Is it that your mind starts to create, like, he looks like somebody I know, or he just said something that reminds me of, and you start mulling things around in your head, and you're in your mental part, right? Track these and find out which ones get activated first. Is it your emotions? Is it your thoughts? Is it your action? Or is it the physical stuff? And then grab that thread and go, okay, so there it starts. So if it's just physical, I can do some breathing. If it's emotional, I can step back and realize I'm in an energetic swirl and I need to calm the swirl down. If it's mental, it's like, how do I maybe transfer my thoughts into a different area so that I'm not perseverating around that hurt or that wound, right? Or if it's action, I've used this analogy of the dial on a gas stove. Turn the heat down. Make sure that it doesn't go into anger or that you aren't incensed inside, right? And number 4, speak. Speak to what you know. Speak to what you feel. Speak from your own sense of power, and then let it go. So when someone says something to you like, oh yeah, you're the tallest, you're the tallest woman in the room and no one can miss you because your hair stands out like all over the place, you go, yeah, it always has. And it just goes, boom. And it leaves you, and then you're not holding on to this hurt, right? So letting something on the external sort of help you realize that you can speak to it. When someone says this, when someone says that, you speak to it, and we find our voice, which then brings the sense of power back into balance, right? So whether it's with your partner or with your child or with your boss or with your friends or with people that you avoid because you are so resentful, find your voice and start to do the exploration on self-knowledge and building your own confidence up of who you are and what you know. Resentment's huge, and I'm really happy that this word sort of dropped in this week, and I think I'm going to spend some more time on it because I think we are a culture of very held, contained, victim energy population, and so resentment is going to be one of the bigger parts of it. And so how do we free ourselves from that? So if this is something that has caught your attention and you would like to do some exploration with me, I coach on a one-to-one, and I always do these videos, and I wrote a book on indigos, which have a lot of resentment, and moving now over to the crystal energy child or kid or human, and talking about where that resentment comes in a different way. So you can find me on DeniseDryden.com. I would love to hear from you. By all means, like, subscribe, put some comments down. Tell me what caught your attention so that I have some feedback from you. And have a great Sunday, and I'll see you next week.